To make it big as a kid, you have to have a natural talent and charisma. The lives of child stars are not easy. It takes a strong support system and incredible mental fortitude to grow up with the eyes of the world trained on you constantly, which explains why so many lives of child stars end in tragedy. Could you imagine going through puberty with the paparazzi following your every move? I mean, that time is awkward enough for all of us, without the added attention. So today, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest child stars of the 1980s, and what paths their lives have taken. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But now, let's take a trip down memory lane. Drew Barrymore. If anyone was ever destined to become an actor, it was Drew Barrymore. The Barrymores for generations had been America's acting royalty, and little Drew wasted no time getting her career off the ground. At the tender age of 7, she starred in 1982's E.T. the Extraterrestrial, just the highest grossing movie of the decade, and a role that catapulted her to stardom.
You can't tell, not even Mom. Why not?
Of course, becoming one of the most famous people in the world before being able to ride most roller coasters is rarely good for a person, and under the harsh glare of the media spotlight, Barrymore was forced to grow up too quickly and turn to drugs and alcohol in order to cope. She emancipated herself from her parents at 14, and by 16 had already published an autobiography entitled Little Girl Lost that detailed her teenage struggle with addiction. Despite her troubles, Barrymore never stopped acting. She's appeared in such massive movies as Scream and Charlie's Angels, which, shameless plug, we have a great Charlie's Angels deep dive into that awesome 70s show. Drew had become one of the world's biggest movie stars. Most recently, she appeared as a ravenous zombie in the Netflix series The Santa Clarita Diet, and now hosts her own daytime talk show, appropriately titled The Drew Barrymore Show. Corey Feldman.
Do the truffle shuffle. Come on, do it!
Few actors have had a streak of hit movies like Corey Feldman did in the mid-80s. Gremlins, The Goonies, Stand By Me, and The Lost Boys were all released in a 4-year period. Come on, that's absolutely ridiculous. This string of extremely successful movies made Feldman into one of the biggest stars around. Unfortunately, as with so many child stars, he was unable to deal with so much fame at such a young age, and soon began to use drugs and alcohol as an escape mechanism. This led to Feldman's film career crashing and burning. And by the end of the 90s, he was relegated to guest spots on TV and starring in B-movies like the fantastically named Tales from the Crypt Presents Bordello of Blood. These days, Feldman makes sporadic appearances on reality TV and focuses on his band, Corey's Angels. They had a legendary performance on the Today Show a couple of years ago. Tracy Gold. As bookish honor student Carol Seaver on Growing Pains, Tracy Gold charmed the nation and became one of TV's biggest child stars. But under the surface, all was not well with America's Golden Girl. Like too many actresses in Hollywood, Gold struggled her whole life with body image issues. And this came to a head in 1988, when at the age of 19, she gained a slight amount of weight during a hiatus from Growing Pains. The show's writers proceeded to have Gold be the brunt of fat jokes from her TV brothers for a whole half season, because sometimes people are really awful humans. Gold stopped eating normal amounts of food and would vomit up what she did eat. By 1991, she had gone from 133 pounds to a skeletal 81. This led to Gold being suspended from the show, which is just about the most messed up thing ever. Fortunately, after a several-year struggle with anorexia, Tracy did recover, and in between acting gigs, now tours the country speaking to young girls about the dangers of eating disorders. Gary Coleman. There are few television catchphrases more iconic than Gary Coleman's "What you talking about, Willis?"
What you talking about, Willis?
By the early 80s, Coleman had become a household name by starring as the precocious Arnold Jackson on Different Strokes. By the end of the show's run, Coleman was making over $100,000 $100,000 per episode and had the world at his feet. Unfortunately, the good times were not going to last. After Diff'rent Strokes, Coleman's career was never the same. And in the early 90s, he sued his parents and manager, alleging that they stole millions of dollars from his trust fund. This financial mismanagement, combined with ever-increasing medical bills from a congenital kidney condition that kept him from growing taller than 4'8", led to Coleman being completely broke. By 1998, he was working as a security guard when he was arrested and pleaded no contest to 1 count of assault. Coleman never gave up on his career though. His last acting role was in a low-budget movie, Midgets vs. Mascots, in 2009, before he tragically succumbed to his lifelong fight with his kidneys in 2010. Brook Shields. To say that Brook Shields grew up in the entertainment industry would be an understatement. Her first modeling job came at just 11 months old, and she hasn't looked back since. But her career didn't really explode until 1980. That was the year that Shields both became the youngest ever model to grace the cover of Vogue and released a series of provocative print and TV ads for Calvin Klein jeans.
You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing.
She soon starred in back-to-back erotic thrillers Blue Lagoon and Endless Love, further cementing her place as one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Shields has continued to act and model, and although her career hasn't reached the heights of her youth, she has always worked consistently. Most recently, she can be found on TV's Jane the Virgin, and volunteers with the Chain of Confidence Smart Girls campaign. Kirk Cameron. In the late 80s, Cameron was one of the most popular child stars on TV, as he starred as Mike Seaver on Growing Pains. Then in 1987, Cameron found not booze and pills, but God. He became a born-again Christian at the age of 17, and soon began to insist that storylines on his hit sitcom be edited to remove anything too adult or inappropriate. Which didn't include fat jokes, I suppose. After the finale of Growing Pains, Cameron stepped away from mainstream entertainment, instead appearing in fare with more overt Christian themes, such as the Left Behind series and 2014's Saving Christmas. These days, Cameron focuses mainly on running his own evangelistic ministry and expressing such lovely opinions as, quote, homosexuality is unnatural, it's detrimental, and ultimately destructive to so many of the foundations of civilization. Whew, I might have chosen the drugs and alcohol. Keesha Pulliam. There was no more adorable TV family in the 1980s than the Cosbys, and if you were pressed to name the cutest Cosby kid, the obvious choice would be their youngest daughter, Rudy Huxtable, played by the delightful Keesha Pulliam. Pulliam began her career extremely early, appearing in her first print ad at 7 months, and the film The Last Dragon when she was 5. But her breakout role, of course, was The Cosby Show, and from her first moments on screen, audiences couldn't resist the overwhelmingly charming Pulliam. In fact, she remains one of the youngest actors ever to be nominated for an Emmy, a distinction she earned in 1986 at just 6 years old. In the 90s, after the end of The Cosby Show, Pulliam made an unusual move for a child star and took a break from acting to finish high school and go to college. But the acting bug never truly goes away. Pulliam can now be found starring on Tyler Perry's House of Pain as Miranda Payne, a role for which she has won 3 NAACP Image Awards. Good on you, Keesha. What an update from some of the biggest child stars of the 1980s. How many of them did you fall in love with back in the day? Did we leave out any 80s child stars that you absolutely adored? Let us know in the comments below, and we always can do a round 2. And if you enjoyed our video, it really would mean the world to us if you would like it and subscribe to the channel. As always, from all of us here at Do You Remember, thanks so much for watching.